Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Millennium TV News. This is Rafiq Pramanik with top stories. US President Trump will donate his salary. Former Obama appointees take on Trump. The intruder arrested after scaling a fence. South Korean court ousts president, 2 dead in protest. Nancy Pelosi called for Republicans. Those are the headlines, now the detail. White House spokesman Sean Spicer says US President Trump will donate his salary at the end of the year and wants the White House Press Corporation to determine where it should go. White House spokesman Sean Spicer says US President Trump will donate his salary at the end of the year and wants the White House Press Corporation to determine where it should go. He has kindly asked that you all help determine where that goes. The way that we can avoid scrutiny is to let the press corporation determine where it should go, said Spicer at the White House briefing on Monday, which prompted laughter from reporters in the room. As President Trump's already tumultuous presidency approaches only its third month, a large amount of former members of Obama administration are taking the lead in battling his agenda.
2 months after former President Obama left the stage, a legion of lawyers from his administration now pushing back against President Donald Trump's agenda. Reuters legal correspondent Lawrence Hurley has the story.
What we found is that several Obama administration lawyers who worked in the Justice Department and other places have now started to fight against Trump in court and in other ways since they've left, which is somewhat unusual in terms of the speed in which they've gone from being government lawyers to suddenly switching and taking action against the government.
The biggest name, former Obama Attorney General Eric Holder, helping California as it ponders a challenge to Trump's latest travel ban. Former Acting Solicitor General Neil Katyal doing the same in Hawaii's lawsuit. Without offering any evidence, Trump has blamed Obama for a wave of town hall protests, White House leaks, even tapping his phone, which Obama has flatly denied. But the lawyers Reuters spoke to didn't need a push from the former president, like former White House ethics czar Norm Eisen, who's become a prominent critic of Trump's alleged conflicts of interest through the nonprofit Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. For some of them, it means putting other plans on hold, like former Justice Department lawyer Jonathan Smith.
A lot of people go into private practice if they're a lawyer, go to work for a law firm, make some money. When he left the government on Inauguration Day, he planned to take some time off to spend with his newborn son, but within 2 weeks he was back at work for a Muslim legal group, partly because of the travel ban and the need to, as he felt, to fight against it.
And with several states announcing fresh opposition to Trump's latest ban Thursday, they won't be taking a break anytime soon.
US President Donald Trump says the intruder arrested after scaling a fence around the White House and entering the grounds was a troubled person. An intruder carrying a backpack was arrested after scaling a fence around the White House and entering the grounds, the United States Secret Service said on Saturday, in the latest breach of security at the president's official's residence. President Donald Trump was inside the White House when the male suspect climbed over the fence on the complex's south grounds at 11:38 p.m. on Friday, and uniformed officers arrested him, the Secret Service said in a statement. The intruder, who authorities didn't immediately identify, was quoted by CNN as telling the agents that he was a friend of the president and had an appointment with him. A top court removed South Korean President Park Geun-hye from office, sparking protest from her supporters, 2 of which were killed in police clashes. Reuters' Joo-min Park says Park may be facing prosecution and jail time for her role in a scandal.
The hammer blow South Korea's president has been dreading for months. Park Geun-hye officially kicked out of office on Friday. Judges in the Constitutional Court unanimously upholding a parliament vote to impeach her.
The benefits to defending the Constitution by removing her from office are overwhelming.
It's the most dramatic turn so far in the country's sweeping corruption scandal. Park and her friend Chae Soon-sil are accused of taking bribes from Korean conglomerate Samsung. And the ruling is her cue to pack up and leave the presidential compound. As Reuters' Jumin Park reports, the next time she moves, it may be to prison.
She now lost presidential immunity, so faces prospect of being prosecuted, possibly jail time. She also lost some other privileges as the president. For example, when she dies, she's not going to be buried in the Seoul National Cemetery where former presidents were honored.
It's the first time a democratically elected president has been booted from power in the country's history. After the ruling, thousands of pro-Park supporters swarmed police buses outside the courthouse. Authorities say 2 of them died in the rally and others were injured and stretchered away. While blocks over, anti-Park protesters shouted in triumph. North Korea also weighed in, calling Park a common criminal in state media. There are a number of possible candidates who could now step up to South Korea's top job. One big question, how Park's successor will handle Pyongyang.
Liberals are likely to take power. Although they are against North Korea's missile and nuclear programs, liberals are relatively more open for engagement and dialogue with Pyongyang, as opposed to Park taking tough stance towards the North and suspending the last remaining cooperation project.
Special elections to pick Park's replacement must now be held within 60 days. Her conservative coalition has taken a battering in the wake of the scandal, and the man who ran against her 4 years ago, Moon Jae-in, is already leading the polls.
House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi called for Republicans to pull their health care plan, dismantling Obamacare after a CBO report forecast that millions would be uninsured. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi urged Republicans to pull their health care plan after a report by the non-partisan U.S. Congressional Budget Office forecasted that 14 million Americans would lose medical insurance by next year. Pelosi added that the Republican plan would benefit the richest people and corporations and be the biggest transfer of wealth in American history. Voicing strong resentment over the bad condition of roads in the port city, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina directed the authorities concerned, including the city mayor, to find out why those could not be developed for a long time. The Prime Minister also warned that no one would be spared if found involved in the corruption and irregularities in development projects, and directed the authorities concerned to implement all the development projects in time, maintaining quality. The Prime Minister was addressing a civic gathering after inaugurating Sheikh Hasina water treatment plant at Boat Club in the city. Before finalizing her party's proposal on election time government's framework, Bangladesh Nationalist Party chairperson Khaleda Zia has elicited opinions from some pro-BNP senior professionals to enrich the idea. 6 professionals, including ex-VC of Dhaka University Professor Amazuddin Ahmed, its former Pro-VC AFM Yusuf Haider, Professor Mahabubullah and Ganashastra Kendra founder Dr. Jafrullah Chaudhary met Khaleda Zia at her Gulshan office on Sunday night and shared their opinions on the election time government. A BNP leader close to the BNP chief told news agency UNB. President Abdul Hamid on Monday stressed the need for working together to free the country from illiteracy, poverty, corruption, terrorism and militancy. We should take a vow to work together to make our country free from illiteracy, poverty, terrorism and militancy. Only then the country will go ahead, he told a rally arranged on the premises of President Abdul Hamid Government College in Itna Upazila on the occasion of its 20th founding anniversary, observing that militancy and terrorism is now a global problem. The President said some derailed youths and even college and university-going students from rich families are getting involved in terrorist activities, which is tarnishing the country's image. The Turkish Foreign Ministry has rejected a call by top EU officials to show restraint in a row with the Netherlands over political campaigning. It described as worthless an appeal by European Union Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini and EU Enlargement Commissioner Johannes Hahn. The row erupted after the Dutch barred Turkish ministers from campaigning among expatriates for a referendum. The referendum would controversially boost the Turkish president's powers. In response to the Dutch move, Turkey barred the Dutch ambassador from returning to Ankara and suspended high-level political talks. While Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan accused the Dutch of using Nazi tactics. The Dutch government cited risks to public order and security as reasons for blocking the Turkish rallies, which have also been prevented in the fellow EU states Germany and Austria, but not France. Bereaved families scaffolded with the rescue workers on Tuesday at a rubbish dump in the Ethiopian capital, where a landslide killed at least 65 people in this weekend. Relatives pushed and shoved emergency workers, angrily accusing them of delays and saying dozens of people are still missing after Saturday's disaster at the Repi dump. Nobody is helping us. We are doing all the digging ourselves. It is shameful, Khalid Tasegi, a relative of one victim, told the Reuters news agency. The disaster late on Saturday destroyed 49 makeshift homes inside the landfill site on the outskirts of Addis Ababa city, spokesman Amore Meknen said. Over the past few days, a few rescuers have used bulldozers to move piles of rubbish and hundreds of people have gathered at the scene. Technology. Featuring state-of-the-art robot thespian, the London production Spilikin follows the story of women with Alzheimer's living with a robot companion. There's a new star in town and is not your usual Hollywood heartthrob. Robot thespian is, as his name suggests, a robot. He is the lead of an unconventional new play in London. Writer and director John Wells saying it's a story about a robot maker who builds all of his life. He builds robots and he develops degenerative illness in midlife and realizes he's not going to live to remain a companion to his wife. His wife by now is developing early Alzheimer's, so he builds his final creation, his final robot, to be a companion to his wife. An international team of scientists says they have taken a big step toward creating life from scratch with the creation of 5 new artificial chromosomes for baker's yeast, a third of its genetic blueprint.
Yeast. It's well known for helping bread rise and brewing beer, but you may not know that it shares 26% of your genes. Now scientists are revealing that they've created 5 new man-made chromosomes of baker's yeast, which Reuters senior correspondent Ben Herschler says promises a new era of designing complex life forms from scratch.
It shows that the synthetic biology revolution is really gathering pace. Before now we've done synthetic copies of bacteria and viruses. This is the first time that scientists have done it for a eukaryotic cell, which is a cell that's got a nucleus, just like human cells. So back in 2014, scientists created the first yeast chromosome. Now, within just a couple of years, they've created 5 more, and they're now very confident that they can produce all the genome of a yeast within a year or so.
Yeast cells are already used to produce enhanced crops and medicines like insulin. But if they do create the entire genome of yeast, the possibilities could be exciting and adventurous. whole new kinds of medicines, industrial chemicals and biofuels.
So the next real step forward is going to be the work towards synthesizing a human genome, which is 250 times bigger than a yeast genome. So it's a lot more work. But scientists have set a goal that they'd like to do that within 10 years. Now, we're not talking about creating whole new human beings, we're talking about creating the genetic code behind a human being, which would be used for research purposes.
The DNA is designed on computers in a lab and can now be very cheaply mass-produced. For scientists, this is the next logical step in genetic engineering. But the possibilities in sight have alarmed some critics, wondering where to draw the ethical boundary.
An animatronic leopard is spotted in London's Trafalgar Square in a bid to highlight the plight of the species. This is not your average big cat sighting. Robotic leopard Lily growls and moves very realistically in the urban jungle of London's Trafalgar Square. She is in town to highlight the plight of big cats around the world as human habitats encroach on their territory. Managing Director of the Big Cat Sanctuary, Giles Clark, saying, "What we are seeing is as habitat across the world continues to disappear and more pressure is being put on species of wildlife, including all of the cats. We are seeing more incidents of human-wildlife conflict on a daily basis." Viewers, now the news on business. Investors refrained from making big moves Monday ahead of the interest rate decision Wednesday by the Federal Reserve. Wall Street drifted lower as drug and energy stocks live market and Chevron wept on the Dow and S&P 500. Investors shied away from making big moves ahead of the Fed's interest rate decision later this week. Chad Morgelander of Washington Crossing Advisors. Chad Morgelander, portfolio manager, Washington Crossing Advisor, saying, "I think investors are just going to be digesting what the Federal Reserve is going to do this week." Tourists are heading back to Europe and the recovery is showing up in everything from rising hotel bookings to tax-free shopping and air traffic, leading to brighter earnings outlook for travel and leisure companies. It's been a dark time for France tourism. Attacks in Paris and nice put visitors up, costing France hotels $675 million in lost revenue in 2016. But the fourth quarter, according to the National Statistics Agency, has been crowds returned to the iconic sites. Now the news on entertainment. The actor at the center of a debate about the casting of British black actors in the US has spoken about how being black has lost him roles. Delian Cleaver, who was born in London, leads the cast of Get Out, a searing racial satire about contemporary America. Released in the UK this week, Jordan Peele's horror film has already been a massive hit at the US box office. But the film hit the headlines last week after actor Samuel L. Jackson criticized Hollywood for casting black British actors in films about US race relations. Mama Yuli is the leader and protector of Indonesia's transgender women, or Oria as they are known. Though revered on some of Indonesia's thousands of islands, warriors are increasingly persecuted elsewhere, as a striker type of Islam takes root, and this makes Mama Yuli's job a lot harder. The second time I met Mama Yuli, she told me she had killed someone else. I scanned the heavily made up face carefully, the eyes rimmed by fake eyelashes and bright red printed lips, to see if she was teasing me. I decided she wasn't. Now the news on sports. Bangladesh on Monday called up uncapped left-arm spinner Shanjamul Islam for their 16-man squad for the 3-match one-day international series against Sri Lanka. Skipper Mustafi Murtaza, all-rounder Shobhagata Home, wicket-keeper Nurul Hassan and uncapped Shanjamul will join 12 players who are already in Sri Lanka for the 2-test series. Mehdi Hassan, Liton Das, Kamrul Hassan, Mominul Haq and Tajul Islam of the test squads are not included in the ODI side. We need a left-arm spinner who could support Saqib Al Hassan, Chief Selector Minhajul Abidin told reporters about the inclusion of 27-year-old Shanjamul. Tajul Islam is not a regular player in the ODIs, so we thought Shanjamul would be the best option because he is also a long-term prospect. Barcelona suffered a hangover from their remarkable Champions League comeback against Paris Saint-Germain as Alex Bergantino's winner 16 minutes from time handed Deportivo La Corona a famous 2-1 win on Sunday. Joshua had fired Deportivo into a first-half lead before Luis Suarez levelled in the first minute of the second period. However, Bergantino's rose highest from a corner to seal Deportivo's first victory over Barcelona since 2008. Barca still lead Real Madrid by 1 point at the top of the La Liga, but the European champions now have 2 games in hand and can go top with victory over Real Betis later on Sunday. Viewers, let's have a look Millennium TV News recap. US President Trump will donate his salary. Former Obama appointees take on Trump. The intruder arrested after scaling a fence. South Korean court oust president, 2 dead in protest. Nancy Pelosi called for Republicans. Viewers, to get any kinds of news, log in our social media facebook.com/MillenniumTVUSA and youtube.com/MillenniumTVUSA. You are up to date with our top stories so far here on Millennium TV, and don't forget to log in our website www.millenniumtv.org and www.millenniumtvusa.com. Thank you and stay with Millennium TV. Allah Hafiz.